What's up guys, assalamu alaikum, this is Fuya. In this video we're going to talk about loops again. Actually this is part 2 and we're going to talk about we're going to see how to loop over dictionaries, and we're going to talk about two advanced features, enumerate and zip, that we can use with for loops so we can be more Pythonic, and we can accomplish more complex tasks with less lines of code. So without further ado, as always, let's begin. So let's start with how we can loop over dictionaries. Consider our old dictionary called capitals: Iran, Tehran, France, Paris, Italy, Rome. And the way that we can iterate over keys, which is not recommended, is simply we can say for, and the variable of for, we are going to call it key because it is intuitive that everyone could realize that we are extracting keys in capitals. Okay, we're going to say, okay, give me the keys. And as we said, because the keys are unique, dictionaries are defined based on their keys. Okay, so whenever you call your dictionary, it simply gives you the it returns the keys, not the values by default. So as you can see here, we get the key, we print the key, and using the same key, we can get the value from our dictionary. This is not recommended because it is not explicit. There is an explicit. Let me just take this one. There is a way which is explicit. It's kind of implicit. The reader should remember the fact that if you just pass in the dictionary name, it returns the keys. But the best way is just explicitly mention .keys. Explicitly, not mention, I mean explicitly to call the keys function method to returns you the keys. Okay, and it is explicit, and this is the best way. And as Python's Zen, you can, using import this, see this. It is not helping. This, it was import this, I think. Yeah, using import this, you can have access to Zen of Python. And if here it simply says explicit is better than implicit, okay? So let me remove this. So even in here, it's better to explicitly type the keys. And the output are the same, exactly the same. But the reader, the one that is reading your code, would easily understand what is going on. If you want to access to the values, just simply call .values, and it returns the values of that dictionary. Tehran, Paris, Rome, as you can see here. These are the values: Tehran, Paris, Rome. And if you want to get access to the items, which we talked about it in the previous video, simply pass an item, and it gives you a dict item object. You can think gives you a list object, which each index contains a key and value pair, like this: Iran, Tehran, France, Paris, Italy, Rome. And if you want to iterate over the items, the one option is iterating over it, but not unpacking it. Okay, iterating over the output of capitals.items, but not unpacking it. What does unpacking mean? As you can see here, I say just the variable name that I pass in for is just simply named item. Okay, so whatever it comes out of here, definitely at the first iteration, Iran and Tehran will be assigned to item, but Iran and Tehran is a tuple. Okay, and the whole tuple is assigned to item, and I print the item values. Okay, I print the whole of item. You can simply print item 0, and for example you can have like this, for example, key equals to, for example, item index 0 and value, for example, item 1. Okay, this is how we can do it as well. By this, you know that the item is going to be a tuple, so you can use indexing in tuples to access different values. But there's another way which is more convenient. If you know how many items are there in your tuples, inner tuples of your, not tuples, inner sequence data types of your list or whatever, here dict items, you can unpack it because we know that we can do this. For example, item 1 and item 2, we know that we can do, for example, like this. Okay, this is a tuple. We know using this we can unpack it. Okay, unpacking sequence data type. This is how we can unpacking the sequence data type here a tuple. Okay, and let me print it out. The items, item 1 and item 2. So you can see them. As you can see, we unpacked it, and item 1 is a string. Item 2 is a distinct and separate string. This is called unpacking. You can do unpacking over for loops while you're doing for loops as well. So instead of one variable, you can have 2, 3, 4, as many names as you want in this section. Okay, let me write the whole names key as well, so it would be more explicit this way. And as you can see here, items, I know that just you have to make sure that you must be sure that all the inner sequence data types like tuples and lists should have the same length. Okay, if one of this inner variables, inner values, one of them, for example, has 3 is a length of 3 and another one is length of 4, this wouldn't work. Okay, so because in unpacking with for loops, the inner items should have the same length, all of them. So dictionaries, we are pretty sure that dictionaries all the time just return a dict items object, which inner items are tuples with 2 items in them. So you can safely use this. And as you can see here, I used the feature of unpacking in Python, and simply I know that this key is representative of key, and this value contains the value of this key. And you can do a lot of items, for example, a lot of process that you want to do. It's based on your code. So let's see a task. It says, okay, let me here. So maybe you want to do it without saying the answer. It says create a new dictionary like capitals in which keys and values are replaced. Okay, so we are going to create a dictionary while the keys and values are replaced. So if you want, you can pause it and do it yourself. And the answer is, first you should create a dictionary, an empty dictionary, and here it loops over the keys and values, and it used the unpacking feature, and based on the unpacking feature it says, okay, keys and values, while you're creating your dictionary, here add new items to dictionary, and in this section just pass your value, and as your value pass the previous key. And as you can see, the value and keys are replaced. Tehran, Iran, it was Iran and then Tehran in capitals variable, but the places are replaced. The keys and values are replaced. Here we are going to talk about another feature that comes very handy while using for loops. Consider there's a task and it says print all elements in capitals except the one which comes first, or except the one which comes second as a second item, or the third item, which except the one that is at index 0. I mean index 0 after applying dot items. Okay, definitely dictionaries do not have integer indexing. So to do so, we all know that we should do something like this. We need a counter or an index denominator that counts the number of index that has passed, so we can do or we can meet our conditions. So we need something that counts the number of iterations. Okay, here for example the I is counter. Okay, maybe let's change it to counter. This would be more explicit, like this. Okay, and here we want to simply we want to print all, and we want to ignore the one at index 0. Okay, the first one definitely comes first, is the one that is at index 0. Again, the index 0 is based on capitals dot items. Okay, not based on capitals. So we start our iteration, and based on the iteration we check counter, whether counter is equal to 0 or not. Definitely at the first time it is equals to 0, and it is going to apply continue. But before applying continue, to just to skip this code of printing, we need to increment counter with 1. So in the next iteration we can make sure that it is equal to 1, and in the next one it is equal to 2, and so on. Let me counter as well. So as you can see, it says maybe I bring this one here. So, yeah, it says index 1 contains France and Paris, and this is the reverse, but we can get what we want, France and Paris. And the one at index 2 is Italy and Rome. So the one at index 0 was skipped or continued using continue keyword. How we can use it easier, because we all know in other programming languages we all can access to for I loops. It says, for example, for I equal to 0, it's I plus plus, while I is smaller than a number. Okay, we have that in other programming languages. So how we can have the same one in Python? To have the same one in Python, we can use enumerate. We are going to get this example. Okay, just let's see enumerate, how we can use enumerate on a list. Yeah. What does enumerate do? Simply enumerate, it counts or return an enumerate object. Let me see whether it has an example or not. The enumerate object yields pairs containing a count, the same as our counter. The count from a start, which defaults to 0. So it has a start enumerate. It says I start enumerating or counting for you from 0. If you want, I can start it from whatever number that you pass in. But by default, it starts from 0, because the 4 gets the item at index 0. That's why by default it starts from 0. So let's see the output. And as you can see, it says at index 0, maybe adding an index here could help. It says at index 0 the item is 1, at index 1 the item is A, and at index 2 the item is 5. It is doing the same counter that we needed, plus it gives us the items value as well. So it returns a pair of items. The first one is the count, which the iteration number you can call it, and the second one is the value that the for loops extracts gets out from the list. So it makes it super easy. You don't need to, for example, define another variable and be obsessed how to, for example, how to increment it so the code does not break and so on. It simply gives you the variable and the counter variable, and it increments it for you. And even you can define a starting number. For example, in here, the starting point is 3. Let me just take this one. Well, it's 3 is not, yeah, it's okay, 3 doesn't matter. And it says here it does not, let's not call it index because it is not index 0. Let's call it count. It says, okay, I'm starting counting from 3, then 4, then 5. So this is how enumerate works. Most of the time, we like to start from 0, and you can skip this one without defining it, without passing any argument to it, because default is 0. So how to do the same task with enumerate? Simply, to do the same task with enumerate, we need to use enumerate, then the iterable, which here is capital start items. And you have to remember, it doesn't matter how many items your iterable returns. The enumerate object just returns a pair of 2 items, okay? And if you want to do the unpacking on enumerate object, the first one, okay, by default, okay, there's no way to get around this. By default, the first one is the count, and the second one is the output of your iterable, okay? If you want to unpack in another level, unpack your iterable, that comes that 4 gets from your iterable, simply you have to do it inside a tuple, okay? Because enumerate just returns 2 items. The first item is the count, and the second item is the output, or is the item that is taken from this iterable item. And if you want to do unpacking, you should do it inside of another tuple. Yes. So as you can see, the outputs are the same, and using L, let me see how many lines it got. It has 7 lines, and this code simply has 5 lines, one of which is a comment. Without considering that, just 4 lines of code. Very, very shorter than this one. So let's talk about the last feature we've got. The last feature is zip. What is zip? Consider that you want to iterate over 2 lists, 3 lists in just one loop. For example, here you've got 2 lists, and you want to add the items in these 2 lists element wise. For example, the item at index 0, you want to add it to item at index 0 of the second list. So you have to iterate over these 2 loops. In this case, we use zip. Simply it zips the 2 lists, or you can say it concatenate them. Just let's see how it works, then it makes sense. Simply zip takes one element from the first one and the second element from the second, and returns it. Again, here, if you like, you can use unpacking, or if you don't want, you can use, for example, items. Simply in this case, you have to access the items in this item variable using index. But definitely, if you're using zip over two variables, it's better to do the unpacking. It makes more sense and it is easier to understand. And as you can see it, here, it takes uh, the first item from LSD1 and assign it to L1, and the second item from LSD2 and assign it to the second one. And it adds them together and append it to list, this final list, and this is the output. Let me show you one more thing, zip and enumerate. You can use zips and enumerate together. It's totally okay. Just you should take care about indexing, okay? But it totally works fine. Let me even make it. Let me add more spice to it. For example, this is -5 or whatsoever. And here we can have LSD3, L1, L2, L3. So as we know, enumerate returns two objects. We can call them objects. The first one is the count. You can call it count or en. I don't know. I like to call it en, the first two characters of a number. We can call it count. And the second one is a separate object, okay? You can call it, for example, LSD items, whatsoever. It's up to you. This will be a tuple of 3 items. Or you can unpack it here using, for example, L1, L2, and L3. For example, let me add this one here as well, L3. And as you can see, it works. 1 plus 5 plus 5 is equal to 11. 2 plus 6 is equal to 8 minus 5 returns 3. So that's it for loops. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, like always, please subscribe the channel and consider introducing to your friends. Till the next video, have a good day.